In this video, I'm going to explain what emotional triggers are and how we've learned how to overcome these triggers, how to release them, let them go, so they no longer control our lives, but we're able to control our emotions and the way we feel about almost any given situation in our lives. So let me start off by what a trigger is. An emotional trigger is usually where you have a situation of some type, and it could be a negative situation. Somebody looks at you the wrong way, says something to you that you don't like, an agreement gets broken, etc., something. And instead of emotionally dealing with it accordingly, the emotion level just rises to something huge. Something that's usually at some level of being way out of control. It could be extreme yelling, screaming. It could be physical. It could be, some people, bring it to a level of violence. It's usually where, when you look back on that situation, that's usually when we look at ourselves and we say something like, boy, why did I act that way? Why did I get so angry? Why did I get so heated? Why didn't I just talk to them instead of getting so pissed off, etc., etc.? You know what situation I'm talking about, right? So that's an emotional trigger, a negative emotional trigger in this example. Now, where does it come from? Why is that there? Our trainer, which I'm going to say his name here because he might see this video one day, Mr. Michael Stevenson from Transform Destiny, amazing guy, amazing company. He was the one who taught us the background of how emotional triggers are made. And I am paraphrasing. I'm not saying exactly how he said it, but I'm saying it in the way that I absorbed. Okay, so I'm just saying that in case you look at his stuff, you look at mine, if there's a slight variation, you know why. Okay, I'm giving you my translation of what I've learned from him. In short, what happens is, an example, if this represents time, and let's say that this is the time of our life. Let's say this is from the moment of birth to the moment of now. What he explains is that throughout our lives, there's going to be things that happen to us that are going to make us feel really good or really bad. And what those things are really are just how we absorb life, how we look at things. But, for example, let's just say, that at age 2 years old, and this is just a random example. Let's say at 2 years old, and I know you probably don't remember, what was I doing at 2? Whether you remember or not is irrelevant. The subconscious remembers everything. And that's what he's taught us. Let's say you're at 2 years old, you wanted to give your mom a hug, and she didn't understand that that's what you wanted, and then you cried. Well, at that time, that might have felt really negative for you. And being 2 years old, most babies don't know how to process that pain. A lot of times they just pretend to let it go, and they do for a period of time. But again, the subconscious stores that. So let's say later on at 3 years old, something happens, and let's say they're playing with their toys, and another kid grabs their toy, and they feel hurt from it. Now, if they feel that negative hurt, if the feeling, not the situation, but if the feeling has any resemblance to this situation at 2, well, what happens is that this emotion, they get linked together. Well, let's take this to 4 years old. Let's say 4 years old, they're supposed to eat, and let's say mom and dad have a favorite dish for them, and they forgot to make the favorite dish. Let's say this child all of a sudden feels negative again, and it's a similar kind of hurt to these past 2 events. Well, now these 3 end up getting joined. They end up getting merged in terms of emotion. Now remember, notice how I'm talking about emotion. I'm not talking about events. The events don't really matter as much as to the way we feel about these events. And that's why you could have totally different things happen throughout your life, but if the emotion is similar, that's how the accumulation of a negative trigger gets created. So you keep fast forwarding throughout their life, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up until, let's say they're 30 years old. Well, 30 years old, let's say they're talking to their friend, and their friend says, hey, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock. And then 5:10 comes around, they don't meet, and then the guy or girl texts and says, hey, I had other plans, totally forgot, I'll catch you another time. And let's just say in that moment, they feel hurt again. Well, if that hurt has any similar feeling to this event, something that happened maybe when they were 29, well, this plus this and this and this and this and this and this, all of this gets connected. So what ends up happening is when this person reacts to this situation of feeling hurt because, let's say, their friend ditched them, well, instead of dealing with the emotions from just this situation, they end up dealing with this emotion plus all of these emotions that were connected. And that's why people, generally speaking, end up going through a major reaction emotionally, where they get super heightened, super angry, super aggressive, super hurt, super sad. And a lot of times they go, well, why did I act that way? Like, why did I overreact to something? And then sometimes they end up analyzing and figuring this stuff out. Or sometimes, which is even worse in my opinion, they end up just blaming the other person. Well, you shouldn't have done that. You should have called me. You should have. And look, I'm not here to blame. I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. In this video, I'm only here to describe how these heavy emotions get created. Which now comes to the last portion of this video, which is, okay, I get it. These emotions get connected. How do we solve it? Well, the way we solve it is this. There's many ways. I'm sure there's more than even I've learned in the past 20 years being involved in this field. But I'm just going to give you our way, the way that I've been taught, the way that Helen's been taught, the way that several of our NLP and hypnosis practitioners, instructors have taught us. What they've basically explained is this. When you look at the brain, you've got two major components. You've got the conscious and you've got the subconscious. The conscious part of your brain is the part that makes all the decisions. It's the mature part of it's the adult part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that says, I will, I won't. I'll do it, I'll not do it. I like this, I don't like that. I'm not sure right now, I'll get back to you. It's constantly deciding. But the emotional part, the part where all these get triggered, it starts here, but it gets stored here in this part. And this is the part that's automatic. The subconscious brain is made to do several things for us. Number one, it's made to help store all of our memories. So just about everything we've ever experienced, even at a young age, if you have somebody to work with you to extract that from your subconscious, you can pull stuff out of you from like 2, 3, 4 years old, 1 year old. You couldn't even think to remember, but it's in there. It also stores emotions. It also stores memory emotions from things that have happened way back. So with a great practitioner or somebody who really knows how to help you extract that information from your subconscious, what they'll do is they'll help you using your subconscious memory, bring yourself all the way back to where that pain, that hurt, we'll call it hurt, you call it anger, sadness, whatever, rage, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're going through. In this example, we're just using hurt. We'll bring that, the practitioner will bring you all the way back to where it started. Don't ask how, or else this video is going to be an hour long. But they can do that. We've been doing that for ages. And when they understand and when they help you understand that this is the first time that you ever experienced this thing called hurt, what they'll do is a technique with you that'll help you understand and process this experience, which, make a long story short, it allows you an ability to release the emotion. Not to suppress it, not to push it away, not to pretend that it's not there. That's what most of us have been taught to do growing up, and we've learned that you can push it away for a little while, but if you don't handle it, eventually it bubbles up and it comes out greater, like worse, in future situations. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about being able to look at this past situation, no matter what it was, and come to a level of acceptance where not only do you look at it as something you experienced, but it's something that you just learn to understand. Like, this was just part of my life. This sucks. It was horrible. It was whatever you want to call it. But it's a part of my life. It's something that I had to go through. Whether it was fair or not, irrelevant. But the fact that I had to go through it and I already have, we've only got one of two choices. Either fight it, which just makes it worse for us, or find a way to accept it, which allows us to use that experience in our favor. The NLP practitioner will then help you create that acceptance, which how that translates emotionally is it creates a separation. And the separation, what I mean by that is that once you create an acceptance of that experience, it takes that pain that you're going through and it diminishes it, it crushes it, and makes it feel like it's no longer there. We've had so many of our clients that have told us that they started with an 8, 9, 10 level pain of hurt, anger, sadness, fear, rage, guilt, whatever you want to call it. And by the time we're done with them in 1 to 2 hours, that 10, 20, 30, 40-year pain they had, all of a sudden they can think of that memory again. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. The pain's gone. But I don't understand why, which is exactly what we want. Because in closing, what happens is this. When this becomes an acceptance, all of these other experiences, all these other emotions that were negative, they just automatically cancel each other out. It's almost like a domino effect where after you drop one negative emotion, poof, the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, they all just collapse. So the end result is that when you go through this negative experience, it's no longer a trigger. It's no longer something where it controls you, where it consumes you, where it makes you so fearful or angry that you can't think about anything else except that. But instead, you can have a negative emotion, you can have some hurt, you can have whatever it is you're experiencing here, but only have your emotions feel that pain regarding this, which essentially is like this level pain versus this level pain. If you had to deal with a painful emotion inside of you, which one do you think might be easier for you to manage? Most people would say, well, the small one. And that's exactly how we help people not only manage their emotions, but help them control it so they show up better, so they're no longer triggered about past or present events. Then they can communicate, and they can perform, and they can speak, and they can connect better with the people around them. That, in closing, is what an emotional trigger is, and that is how we help people handle them.